Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk Atlanta with your favorite host, Taisha Renee.
I'm Ashley LeRae.
River the Realtor.
And Nika W.
And today's topic, we jumping into the fun, the day that everyone loves, closing day.
Our favorite day.
Money sign, money sign, money sign.
Money sign. I feel like everyone is on Instagram, and when they see closing day, they think of like boomerangs and celebration. But let's talk about like the actual closing day. Like, yes, it's a very, 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 very special, important, exciting day, but sometimes things come up. And you just kind of need to be aware that, you know, closing day may not be as smooth as it should be, but that doesn't mean that the closing isn't supposed to happen. You know, things happen. So let's talk about it.
I've shed a few tears before them boomerangs. Talking about.
Okay.
No, for real.
I feel as a realtor, it's like stressful. It's like a rush. It's like we got to get it done. We at the finish line. We got to get the content, but also make sure that business is being handled.
Okay.
No,
The
people
deal
think
is
we pull up for closing day just ready to close.
Right.
Like we
No.
didn't just do a whole bunch of stuff to get there. Like I have never had a closing day where all I had to do was show up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish.
Right.
My last closing, we showed up, and then they said we're not going to close. And I was like, wait a minute. Now. I was like, nah, we got to sign something.
Where the cameras?
I had the photographer, the charcuterie. I was like, nah, we got to do something.
Okay.
Content is king.
But before we get to the actual day, y'all, let's talk about a few little
Let's
steps.
break it down.
First get into the clear to close.
My favorite.
I know you probably see realtors always like, oh, clear to close, C to C. What does that mean though? What does clear to close mean? How do you explain that to your clients?
Yeah, so for me, clear to close is just like an email or just a sign from the lender that says, hey, we have everything we need from your client that says that we can give them the money to buy this house and they can proceed to the attorney's office to sign off on their brand new home. You are clear to close on your new home.
Clear to close is when you're really in there.
Yes, it's
Clear to
official.
close for me is like a breath of fresh air.
Man.
Okay, I can no more digging around, no more nothing. The underwriter is happy. We're happy. Now I can call the photographer and start doing all that.
no,
I don't even book now.
Yeah.
Today, I do not book anything until I get a clear to close. I have gotten a clear to close the same day and called a photographer like, can you come in? Because if you
Shout
don't
out
have
to
that
him.
clear to close, it's technically not
You don't
closing.
know. Yeah.
Right. It's not closing. Like, even if we say this is closing on the 13th, if the lender didn't say that this is closing on the 13th, then we'll have to wait.
And legally, you have to get that clear to close like 3 days.
3 days before they have to see you that like final closing disclosure, which outlines what your monthly payment's going to be. Just outline what money you need to bring up front. And in a clear to close, if it's delayed, don't like let that alarm you. Because anything, it could be like an employer holding things up, student loans are holding things up, something that you need. So there are things that happen that can delay it, but it's still going to happen. You'll get that clear to close.
Delays
at
that
some
does
point.
not mean no. I got the
Delay
clear
does
to
not
mean
denied.
Right. That's why
There it is.
Yeah. You can have that clear to close the day of, in the morning, at 9 o'clock, 10 a.m. Usually, if I don't have that clear to close by the day of closing, 9 a.m., when the attorney's office is open, I'm on their line. I'm like the first person. Because, you know, it's kind of like still stressful. It's like you want to make sure you tell your client everything is good. Everything is going to work out. We have to clear to close now so we can close. So
It's like the equivalent to like when you wake up and you check your account and that direct deposit hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, literally.
That's
Not when it's in pending status. When it is in your account.
Right.
That's what that clear to close definitely is.
So once you get that clear to close, now it's time to schedule our final walkthrough.
Yes.
Our final walkthrough is just because when you saw the house went under contract, we got to make sure the house is in the same condition.
Right.
In the same condition. Like I always tell my clients, like when we first go, like always take a video, take pictures. I take video and I take pictures just to compare it from, especially if someone's living there. If it's vacant, that's kind of different because there's no one there. So, you know, unless someone broke in there, it's rare that something's going to look different. But if it's occupied and there's a family there and they're moving, you know, things can happen. So we just want to make sure that the house is in the same condition that it was prior to you actually closing.
Right.
Yeah, and I always have my clients do the final walkthrough the day before because early on, like I would have closing at like 3 o'clock, so we would do like a 9 a.m. walkthrough. And the thing about the walkthrough is like, let's say when you went under contract, there were certain repairs that you asked for.
Right.
When you do that final walkthrough, that's also your time to make sure that those repairs were done. And I had a client where there was a leak, the seller's supposed to take care of it. I'm like, let's just do the final walkthrough, like glitz and glam. I'm ready to have toast. He was like, why is the sink still leaking? You're right. One second. But you don't know that until the walkthrough. So it gives you enough time day of where if something that the seller was supposed to fix is not done, you can still have a contractor or somebody come in and fix it, which they were able to do when we closed. But now I just do it the day before just to alleviate some of that stress so that there are things that the seller needs to do. They have a whole day to get them done.
Get them right. No excuse. And then we're going to go back the day of and check it
go back again.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of your due diligence because if something in there, you don't do your final walkthrough and things, everything okay, and you close and sign on this dotted line,
the house is yours.
You have
so
to
it's that mistake.
Right.
You inherit that repair when you sign.
Or even if the seller, you and the seller, when you went under contract, agreed to have the house vacant, or they take something out of the house that you don't want, or leave something in the house that you wanted, you want to make sure that whatever you guys agreed upon, it's in the house.
And that's especially important, especially when you're doing those temporary occupancies.
Yes.
Those can get like really, really scary because it's like you close on the house. So temporary occupancy is when you close on the house. So you've already signed on the dotted line. We've done it at the closing attorney's office. We got boomerangs, but the sellers are still there. And they have a X amount of days to be there. You want to do another walkthrough.
And it's up to 60 days.
Yeah, it's up to 60 days that they can stay there. But, however long you got them, 5 days, 2 days, 1
7
day.
days.
It just depends on what you and the seller agree on. But you want to do another walkthrough because on that temporary occupancy amendment, it says that, any damages or anything is held for by the seller. Yeah. So that's where those videos and those pictures come in hand because you'll be like, well, this hole wasn't here prior to me closing. So you need to fix this hole before you leave out. Because
if you don't, now that's your hole to fix.
Exactly. Before you actually move in there and they actually give you the final keys, make sure that those things are done.
Because the other big thing that I keep having issues with on the resale are those appliances. And I always tell people in the final walkthrough, yes, everything you can see, make sure it's right, but turn the gas on, make sure it good works, flush the toilet, look under the sinks, like make sure your appliances and like the systems in the house are still working. Because again, if you close on the house and your refrigerator, the ice maker don't work, well, baby, you just don't have no ice. That's just what it's going to be.
And you want to make sure that whatever is on the seller's property disclosure that the seller is saying that they're living with the home, it's actually left with the home because it was an instant where a client, the seller did not want to leave the fridge in the home, and he put on the seller's property disclosure that he was going to live. And then when we go to a walkthrough, the fridge wasn't there. So now the buyer's like...
seller's property disclosure, because I want to make sure they know what that is. When you buy a home, a seller fills out a seller's property disclosure. It, one, discloses everything they know in terms of defects with the property, right? Has there been any instances of flooding? Are there any issues that you know about it with the structure? And then there's one full page where they check off everything that's going to stay in the house, whether it's an appliance, a fixture, the carbon monoxide detector, and they tell you these are the items. Once you sign off on that, everything that they say is in the home needs to be in the home.
So the buyer is like, I'm not signing on the dotted line. Closing has to stop. So guess what? Now we got to call the attorney. We got to amend the contract, make sure that closing day is not going to happen until this fridge is in the home. Yeah. And that was the fault of the listing agent of the seller. We thought that we was going to buy this property with this fridge, and now this fridge needs to be in the house before we close. So things like that are why the walkthrough is super, super important.
That's good for people, too, who purchase a home and want to keep some of the furniture in there because people do that as well. Make sure whatever furniture is agreed upon and what you paid for within the purchase price, that it's staying in there.
Another thing with the seller's property disclosure, with just keeping in mind, especially with new realtors and buyers, I know for me as a new realtor, I made a mistake when I first got my real estate license because I didn't read the seller's property disclosure or point out certain things to my buyer. And one thing that we thought was being left, like the washer and dryer, we thought was going to be there, but the seller actually didn't check it off. So as a new agent, even as a buyer, make sure that you're reading it in detail and in depth and understanding what exactly is going to be in the house. So now when I work with my clients, I'm always like, okay, here's a list of things that are going to be included in the house. These are things like you really need to break those down. So especially new agents, make sure that you're reading those things and like relaying that to your client via email to say what's in there, so you have
always have it in
for
writing.
A buyer's agent, but another thing is for like listing agents, do the same thing. Sit down with your client and say, so are you sure you're going to leave this? Because that's what you checked off, because they're going to be looking at you crazy like, well, your client is the one that did that. So make sure, because I've only had a couple listings. I'm more of a buyer's agent, but I'm like, what time can I come over so we can do this paperwork together?
Let's sit
and that
down.
way we don't have no misunderstandings, because if we do, you're just going to be mad because you're going to get them, we sat there and talked it through. So sit down with your client and make sure they know what they're signing as well.
Right. And one more thing I wanted to say is sometimes they do have good intentions, right? They have the stuff in the description of the listing. This is what's staying with the property, but then they're being very negligent about checking those things on the seller's property disclosure. So you want to make sure everything is in writing, because then if the seller knows that and the listing agent at the last minute, he want to pull out and be like, you know what, I actually don't want to leave it. It wasn't in the seller's property disclosure, and now you missed out, even though they wanted to leave that out. But now that you've agreed upon something that wasn't signed on there, so make sure that your agent is literally reading through. I've done that a couple times. Go back and tell, hey, the listing agent, this wasn't, filled out properly. Can you go ahead and check it out?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we got the clear to close. We did the final walkthrough.
Yes.
Now, you guys, today is the day. Well, actually, it's the day before. You need to wire your money.
Oh my God.
Can we please talk about
Before you
that?
get to that, I almost jumped too quick because you still got to pay the fine.
Right.
What's the motto? If you want to have fun, you gotta pay the fine.
You gotta have the fun. So you definitely want to pay, like I mentioned earlier, the closing disclosure that the lender provides you 3 days before. Once you signed off, numbers look good, this is the amount. It'll say like cash to close. You'll know this is the amount that you need to wire. You need to wire those funds to the closing attorney's office 24 hours prior.
Thank you.
And the closing attorney will send you those instructions. I always tell my buyers, give them a call. Even when I was buying, I'm giving her a call 2 times. So this is the right account, right? Because you do not want that money to go to the wrong account. That's a lot of money.
You really may not get it back.
Right. You may not get it back. Like, that's a lot of money. A lot of money. They put it in there. Call the attorney's office before wiring to confirm details, because they're scammers. It could have been someone sent you an email.
We're
in Atlanta.
Someone could have sent you an email, like, mimicking their email, and that could have been false wiring instructions, and that's completely out of everybody's hands.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Call them your due diligence before you do it. Yeah, due diligence. Due diligence is important.
Right. Make sure you verify. It's a big investment. Verify everything multiple times, because sometimes I know my lender, I was like, the numbers that you see in your first closing disclosure is not going to be the same number usually when you get to the day of closing, or that day, because then the attorney needs to balance everything. So sometimes, what about you guys? Sometimes my client end up paying a little bit less than what the initial number is.
It's never too far off.
Yeah, it's never too far.
Like they're going to tell you owe $20,000, but really you owe $40,000.
Yeah.
It's never nothing that crazy. It'll probably be a few hundred.
I usually see the change when it's like a delay. So like we were supposed to close on the 12th, and then we don't close till like the 16th.
Yeah,
because the taxes is less days that your client is responsible for paying the taxes.
And relocking that rate, because the rate probably expires. So you have to
like
relock
that.
it. Yeah,
and it's down to the penny.
Down
to the penny.
Sometimes I would tell my clients, I always tell them to overwire maybe like a couple $100. That way that when the money comes back, we get to the attorney's office, they can always cut you a check for it back. But if you're short and you have to wire funds right then and there, it's going to delay it. But one thing that I have to bring up, because this happened to me on a deal, listen to what they're saying when it comes to wiring the money, because they send over not just the account and routing number, they send over wiring instructions. Read the instructions and follow them, because I had a client where it'll ask you, do you want to do a wire payment or like ACH, right?
Do not do that.
So that ACH payment is like kind of when you use like a debit card or something over, it's not really wiring from one account to the next. If you do an ACH payment, that money is not going to go through.
Immediately. It'll be like 3 to 5 business days.
And sometimes not even that, because sometimes to do an ACH payment, it's a whole different set of account numbers. So I had a client, we had one of those 4 o'clock closings, wired ACH, sent the money that morning, couldn't get it. So by the time we realized what was going on, the bank is like, we're closed. Like, we're not doing that. He's like, I got to close today. I got to do this. If you had to close today, you would have read the wiring instructions. But you have time to play, so you have time to stay. And that's what we do. We stayed at that attorney's office. But it's just like, when it comes to your money, you want to be super careful, because you're wiring tens of thousands of dollars sometimes. If that money gets lost and you cannot get it back,
it's out of our control.
It's out of everybody's control.
Out of, you can't blame anyone but yourself.
Well, with that negligence too, you can lose your earnest money if the seller don't want to extend closing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
so now you done lost your earnest money
and your home.
And your funds.
It's a disaster.
And your dignity at this point. You lost everything. Nothing left to lose.
You crying in the shower.
With your clothes on.
Fully clothed.
No, literally.
In the shower.
And now your realtor is mad at the table.
Realtor's
everybody.
I'm in the shower too. Like.
Oh all this work down the drain. But it's just like you have to be careful. Oh my God, buying a house is such a big
and be prompt, because I have
Yeah.
had clients who wired their earnest money at the attorney's office, and it's like, I thought we were supposed to close at 2. I thought you were supposed to wire that money yesterday.
Right. What happened?
Let's just sit on down and eat some of that charcuterie.
Exactly.
I am on pins and needles until I see the receipt that they wired. I'm like, did you send it to me? Like,
Okay.
did you do it?
And I always tell my buyers wire a little bit more than that number, because during that 24-hour period, something can change. You just never know. And you'll get the money back at closing.
Right.
They'll give you a
Write your
check
check.
right there. You'll get it back. But it's better to wire more than to get there. And I also
And
tell
be
them bring
sure.
a blank check just in case you do have to pay something right then. But it's better to wire more and get a check back than wire less. And then we have to have a delay. You got to write a check, all this good stuff.
Exactly.
Which is why it's good to have the funds. Okay.
Have the funds if you want to have fun.
And that is when the fun comes in. That's when the fun begins.
Okay, because now we at closing day.
We have a soul.
I wish I didn't brought y'all sign.
in the
Y'all
car.
know. Ordered mine
I
from
don't
the car
have one.
too. You need to get one.
I keep mine in the
Etsy. I got
car.
mine from Etsy.
I'm gonna get on that.
me
but-
too.
Yeah.
I use all things
I
real
said, wait,
estate.
why y'all didn't order me one?
I always get one. But no, y'all, it's closing day, and closing day looks different for everyone. Everyone's realtor does different things. But one thing I'll say on closing day is for realtors and buyers, review that settlement statement.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes, like, numbers can be off. Like, the seller's supposed to pay for the HOA transfer, but they got that for the buyer. Like, you know, you need to review that settlement statement, make sure all
Quick
numbers
breakdown.
are good, because
Settlement
that's the
statement.
document that you're gonna use to basically have everything cut on. Like, that's your and, you know, your deed, of course, but that settlement statement, like, you need that.
And the settlement statement is like itemized, right? It is
Yeah.
a sheet that itemizes every single fee that went into like the amount of money that's being paid out to you and that you're paying out to the seller and vice versa. So it'll have on there what the payoff was for the seller, how much the water bill is, what the tax bill is, what the attorney bill is. Make sure those numbers align, especially when it comes to like your prorated tax amount, your previous bills that you owe, and the people who are on it. Because I had a deal where it was under contract, but then it fell out, and then my client, and then when I saw the settlement statement, the old buyer's name was on there, my commission check was written out to somebody else, and I was like,
Oh, no.
oh, I don't know who Maria LaFleur is, but she cannot have my money.
Who is that?
And they would have cut the check right then and there if you don't review it. So read the itemized thing. Your money is your money. If you came to closing not knowing how much you were owed, you didn't want the money anyway.
Right.
Me, I know what my money's for.
No, that is facts. I've definitely had a very similar story. Well, it was actually on the house that my mom bought. I was just telling Taisha this. It was very negligent of the other agent on the other side, because it was supposed to be my commission was supposed to use toward the closing costs for my home, and the lender put it as a seller's credit. So the listing agent was not at closing. The sellers had a power of attorney, so nobody was there to check their settlement statement. And sometimes when you don't check your settlement statement for your client, because sometimes they don't really know, how to check that, then you can lose a lot of money on the table if you're not careful and not reviewing it for your client, or you want to be negligent and not come to closing. If I can make it to closing for some odd reason, I'm gonna call Ashley, River, Taisha.
I was about to say Ashley.
I'm over here.
Ashley, River, Taisha, to kind of be there and represent my client, because I don't want them to be blindsided about anything.
Right.
Whether it's like a HOA fee, an initiation fee, or something.
They need that representation
They
from
need that
beginning to
representation.
end.
And we gonna show up for each other. It gotta be like one of us would have had to got blown away by a hurricane or something crazy for us not to show up for a client's closing. So one of us will definitely be in place of the other, because we not letting y'all go out.
Right.
And we gonna get the content.
Okay. The content.
Yes.
So what you see on Instagram, the boomerangs, the produced videos.
Right.
Hello.
that's going
We
on.
go all out.
Different. What do y'all do for y'all? Because everyone's closing looks a little bit different. So how do y'all celebrate y'all's clients?
It
Make
depends
that
on
day
the
special?
client.
Yeah, it does depend on the client.
See, I had a closing this week, and my client, I never even once asked him what he wants to do, because I already knew he would have been like, "Now Rivers, stop playing with me." And that's why I'm like, somebody asked him, like, I didn't see your client in your video. I said, because you weren't supposed to.
Right.
I mean, we still celebrated, like, something small in the office. He's just more a personable guy. We sat there, we talked, we laughed about everything. And I love those moments. So I have clients who don't want to be on camera. And that's totally
private. Privacy is important.
And we could still hang out. I closed on $1 million house, and literally we sat at closing for 5 hours, just chopping it up about everything, privacy. And then my younger clients, they like, so what we wearing?
Right.
Are we matching?
Okay.
Should we do
That's Nika.
I want this. So it depends on the client.
It does depend on the
For sure.
client.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole buying process, you get to know your clients and what they like, what their vibe is. But I honestly, because there are some clients, I just cannot read them. So I started filling out, sending them a form to fill out just with some generic questions, like what they like, what their favorite alcohol is. Or I started implementing this thing where I give them a custom cake. So I want to know, what's your favorite cake flavor? Even though I don't say like it's for closing day, but I have to know. Y'all know I'm very organized.
Small touches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
I might steal that because I just be like, so what'd you do this week?
Yeah, the conversations are so awkward.
What's your favorite color?
Yes,
what do you like to drink?
I'm asking
What's your
questions.
No, for me, it really does depend on the client. I'll probably do something at closing, or maybe we'll go out for dinner the next day. It just depends. I kind of learn my clients and trying to personalize around them. Sometimes, we might do the whole grand thing. We have Versace, we have Gucci, we have everything.
I'm going to close with Nika.
But sometimes we might just do something very personable, and just go out to eat, talk to them. Some people need nurturing, so it just really depends on the client if they're flashy or not.
Yeah, same. That's what like you guys said, it just depends on the client. Like for my most of my clients are friends, so it's I know them, so I know exactly what you like. I know you like to have a good time. I know you gonna love the cameras, but then I have other clients. Like my clients in higher price points are more private. My most expensive homes, they're like, no, I don't want to do all of that. And I'm just like, I totally understand. Then I have some other clients who are not in those higher price points, but they're just shy. They just kind of want to keep it private to themselves. So I respect that as well. So
tell your realtor what you like.
Because I always listen, this is how I usually do my closing day experience, the champagne, nice, breakfast. I like to have it recorded, and I was just like, is that something that you're comfortable with?
Right.
And of course, you have to sign a document because these things are going to be posted on social media. And when you're doing these things, you want to make sure that you don't get the client's home or anything because you don't want, for
privacy reasons.
Stuff. People are crazy.
Yeah, Atlanta's getting bad right now. Yeah,
so you just really be careful when doing that. And a lot of people do that. So sometimes we'll do that at the closing attorney's office. It just kind of just depends. The person, the situation, all that good stuff.
And I'm glad you brought up that form. It's 2022, y'all. Consent. You need consent to do anything.
Yes.
Because
recording somebody without their permission, even if you feel like, oh, that's my client, they may not. You don't know what your client got going on when y'all not buying houses. Your client, I don't want to give y'all no extreme instances. But you don't know what your client got going on, right? It could be somebody stalking them. I get a lot of I don't want my family to know.
I get a lot of that. I get a lot of that.
The issues are deeper than us. But it's just being very respectful and just making sure you have their permission, especially before you start posting them on social media.
Okay.
Now everybody is looking. Your client could be a public figure and you don't even know it. Because I've had clients who I don't know them, and then closing day come in because I do not share. I do kind of. If you don't find me on Instagram, I wouldn't show them my Instagram page until closing, and then we might follow each other. And it's she got 2,200. Who are you? And she just I want to keep it low, that kind of thing. So consent is just please.
I'm so glad you said that because you have to respect people's privacy.
Absolutely.
Not everyone wants their home blasted on the internet, and as agents, we don't want to be held liable for anything that happens after closing. So yes, get that form signed if you're looking to do a closing day experience with social media. And what I noticed is most of the time my big closing day experiences are all for first-time home buyers. They love that. They love it. They eat it up. It's a really big accomplishment. We have to celebrate. It typically doesn't. I don't really do that for repeat buyers or investors. It's I've been there, done that. But for the first-time home buyers, we got to celebrate.
We got to celebrate.
I did my own closing day. I was my own real time. I was in there
my closing was so stressful. I didn't get nothing. I don't even want to talk about it. I didn't even know if I was going to close. But we closed.
Girl, you did.
She didn't have that clear to close.
It's different.
Everyone's different.
I got to clear close at the very last minute. The seller had to run in and sign one day. I went in and signed the next day. It was crazy.
Yeah, we were wait, Taisha, you closed today?
I said, girl, by the grace of the Lord. Because I wanted to do that, but I couldn't because it was just so I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah,
So,
and that shows not every
okay.
transaction is just smooth sailing and perfect.
Yeah.
It's not, but everybody does end up with the home that they wanted.
Yes,
So
of course.
that is where like the joy comes in. So I feel like if you want a lit closing, let's do it.
Yeah.
If you want a private one, we can
Just
accommodate
say that. Just
Right.
communicate with your clients. Like as a new agent, communicate with your clients. Make sure you're not offending them.
Right.
And making sure that they're okay with it. Because the last thing you want is your clients to be mad at you. You all happy at closing. And they come up mad at you.
No, that's when you get on realtor.com. And the review is like,
and you thought you did but it's not just all about you on closing day. It's definitely about your client first. And then you can take all the pictures and stuff after.
I've seen that happen before where a client didn't know that cameras were going to be at closing for their new home and they were not happy about it. So,
Hello. That's why y'all need to work with agents like us.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want
We know
that to
how to
happen to
accommodate
you.
our buyers.
So y'all, that is basically like, so if you want to have a smooth closing and get to close the day and celebrate, just make sure that you take the steps. Get your clear close, do your final walkthrough, your final inspections, all this good stuff. Get to closing on time. Allocate time to be there about 2 hours.
those
You just never know. Wire those funds. And sign all of those documents because you're going to sign a stack of papers. Okay, it's going to take a lot of. It's going to be the attorney going to explain everything. But it's going to be a lot of paperwork.
You know what else not to forget to do before you close?
What?
Turn on your utilities. Please get that done. You don't want to be in the dark in your new house.
Why did I forget to do that?
Yes.
You
You did on your house?
I did,
it's
but luckily
such
my closing was delayed. But the day it was supposed to close, I did the final walkthrough with the seller before. I'm like, oh, we closing tomorrow, and she was like, yeah, just these the companies. I said, oh my god, I haven't switched over no utilities. Luckily, it was pushed to the next week, but it was
Definitely
like,
do that.
There's so much going on, you
moving
forget.
in, but my contractor was like, it's pretty hot in this house. I was like, oop.
You're
Let me
right.
call you right back. 'Cause I just forgot because I wasn't moving in. And then y'all know my brother, I told y'all, he worked from home. He was trying to borrow the neighbor cable because he's like, I need Wi-Fi. I'm just like, yeah, turn y'all utilities on.
Yes, have all that done. Utilities, internet, whatever you
Connect
need.
your trash.
Yes.
Oh my god, please do that because you're gonna be in the house. At this point, it's
You can't move
With
in.
them same balloons.
Right.
Okay, with the same balloons
From
and
closing day.
champagne, warming yourself up.
Eating the charcuterie left over.
They got no gas.
But whatever your
that.
closing day is, just make sure you fully celebrate it. Whatever comes at you, good or bad, just make sure that you take in that experience and you know be proud of yourself for making that.
You have to be. That's such a huge milestone.
Welcome to the mortgage club.
Okay, welcome to the mortgage club.
It's a very exclusive club.
Okay.
Not everybody
Give me
can
American
get
Express. Give me
Black card.
Right.
But let's take it on over for our question of the day with Miss Ashley Lorraine.
And you're our what?
I'm your realtor, babe.
She has never said that this is an exclusive.
Now, soak in this moment because it may not happen again, okay? So, yes, if you are tuning in for the first time, we have this segment called the Question of the Day where we take live questions from you guys that you ask via Instagram at Real Talk Atlanta or via email at realtalkatl@gmail.com. That is a mouthful.
Every time.
You say that every time.
Yes. So remember, though, to keep it cute, okay? When you're asking a question, it can be anything personal or real estate related, but just keep it appropriate. So, should I say who asked the question today?
Who is it?
So, the listener, Courtney Blandon.
Hey, all the questions.
She loves the show,
I'm
okay?
gonna do something special for Courtney. Courtney stay in tune.
You're a real one.
Yes. So, Courtney wanted to know what would our advice be if something were to happen to your home after you move in?
As far as like fixtures and
Yeah.
stuff, like anything.
So I'm
messed
assuming
up?
she meant if something like maybe an appliance broke or there was a problem with the home, what happens? How do you
That's
handle
where
that?
those
Tough.
warranties, those
That's why
home
you do your
insurance.
due diligence.
Remember in our previous episode, Georgia is a buyer beware state. So once you have moved into the house and you've closed, anything that's happening with the house is out of the hands of the seller. So if my buyer calls me like, oh, something happened, I'm not going to call the seller and be like, oh, you need to you
Fix
know,
it.
whatever, because this is stuff that we should have handled beforehand. But that's just like what warranties come in. Like if it's an appliance, I'm pretty sure the inspection let us know that this appliance is near end of life. If it didn't, you still have a home warranty. I always make sure that's something that I either negotiate with the sellers or I just gift it to my clients. But those home warranties are going to call your home warranty, get it replaced.
And I'm glad you said that, because one thing, a piece of advice that I give you before closing that'll help with after closing issue is read about your warranty and figure out how to use it. Don't wait until your HVAC go out to be like, where's my warranty? Who do I call to like know how to use that actual warranty? It's one thing to have it, but it's no good to have it if you don't know who to call, how to schedule stuff to get done. So like when you get that warranty, just look over the paperwork, figure out like, you know, what the protocol is if something happens, so that when it does, it's like, oh, okay, I know to pull up this, do that, and it's done for, and you don't have to really stress about it. Because my HVAC had like a little leak or something coming from it, and I'm gonna be honest, I can't even find a warranty because I just never looked at it because I was moving around doing 100 different things. So figure out how to use that warranty before issue happens. That way it's way less stress on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Something else I want to mention, that it could be a possibility where whatever issue you had, it could have been something that the seller knew about and just never disclosed. So look over that seller's property disclosure that we mentioned. Of course, you would have to be able to prove that the seller knew about it, but let's say something happened with your roof and the seller replaced the roof maybe a year ago, and if you have those documents, and you can ask them like, you know, hey, what happened with the roof? Were there any issues? Just to kind of figure out if there's any gray area.
But also, if you don't read that disclosure and they have disclosed it, they're not liable because we told you. So it's the same thing, because I had a couple of buyers, like something happened with the home after we moved in, and she was trying to sue the seller. And like you said, Georgia is a buyer beware state. You cannot sue the seller for something after closing unless it's more than $20,000 damages done. So then it will be worth it, because the process of suing the seller and doing all that is going to cost you way more than just fixing the problem yourself. So yeah, definitely look out for that.
So we want y'all to get the issues done before. If there are some afterwards, your warranty is literally your best bet.
And then also make sure you have money saved for it. Like you just put up all this money, but you always make sure you have some type of cushion to like live your life and then be able to cover any of those, because it may be something that's not covered over, you know, under your home warranty or something like that. Make sure that you have the funds to get that fixed.
You know, words of Glorilla, every day the sun won't shine. But that's why I love the more.
Y'all cutting up today. Y'all cutting up. You know what I was going to mention? You know how with the down payments 3%, there is a rule of thumb that it's best to save 3% of your purchase price every year annually, just for any repairs.
That's
if you
a
have
good
to
tip. That's a good tip. Pro tip.
Yes, if you can, definitely open up like a separate savings account and just save money, because it's going to be a rainy day eventually. Okay. With homes, it is what it is.
It's a responsibility. It is your responsibility.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's
Y'all point at the camera real quick. It is
your responsibility.
We should put it in this.
Yeah, we'll do that. I love it.
But thank you guys.
that
was so good. That was so good. Thank y'all for tuning in. We hope that when your closing day comes, hopefully it's with us. And it's the best experience. If not, we still hope it's the best experience that you have had. If you have any closing day stories, share it with us. Maybe we can share it on our page or talk about it on
comments.
Yeah, let us know.
And we got the luxury closings coming soon.
Okay.
So
and
excited.
we're going to talk about it, y'all.
Love it.
Tune in every week.
See you guys soon.
Bye.